Hey guys, Peter Shankman here, waiting on Scott Carney, who is just finishing up an interview with NPR, I believe. So I'm obviously not as important as NPR. So as soon as I hear from Scott that he is on board, I will bring him into the studio. But I am thrilled that anyone is watching or anyone is here. I hope you guys are having a great Friday. I'm going to try to get rid of that background light. There we go. So it is raining in New York City. Unfortunately, it was a gorgeous morning. I got to run in outside wearing my mask, but it was lovely to be outside. And just to feel running outside gave me a sense of normalcy that I think has been sorely lacking over the past 8 weeks or so. It was very, very nice. Again, we're waiting on Scott, and he should be here any second. So I will, I'll let everyone know. There, waiting on Scott to join any second. So the fascinating thing about running outside this morning was that I saw about a dozen other runners on the path, and as I was watching them, as we were passing each other, we were, we always tend to, runners are a special breed in that we tend to give ourselves more, we give each other room, right, to pass, especially in New York City. We were giving each other even more room to the point where we were hugging the side of the West Side Highway path, which I thought was a really nice thing. And it's interesting for those who wear masks and who socially distance themselves. Coronavirus has done something interesting in that it has there's Scott. Okay, even better. So stand by. Scott is now joining us. So let's see if he can turn on some light. There we go. Hi, buddy.
How are you doing?
All right, and we got audio too. I said we weren't as important as your other interview, but we are so glad you're here. And welcome, Scott. It's great to have you.
I'm going to try to fix the audio. Oh, I can't.
You sound fine to me.
All right. Cool. Look, I look red. I am sunburned, and my hair is a mess.
Mine's blue. Mine's blue, so we're pretty good,
Yours is blue. My beard is big. I mean, this is COVID living, man. Let me just take off my clothes 1 second. Oh, yeah.
and that's gonna be that. Okay, it's gonna be that kind of interview. Cool. So it's great to have you here, Scott. Thank you for joining us. I was talking about how while I was waiting for you to come on, I was talking this morning about how I went out for a run. I did 3 miles on the West Side Highway, and it brought back some level of normalcy to that's so desperately needed that we just do not have anymore.
When you say a run on the West Side Highway, I'm picturing the scene from I Am Legend where you're running in the middle of the road from zombies. That's not the what?
No, the West Side Highway is open for cars, and there were cars. The West Side Highway has a jogging path right next to it. Fun fact, built by the tax measures laid out, or bond measures laid out by Ed Koch back in the 70s, the last time New York was in a fiscal crisis like we are right now. So thanks to Ed Koch for the West Side Highway jogging path. But it brought back this level of normalcy that is missing. And I think that if we can figure out how to get just a little bit of normalcy in our day, every day during this nightmare bullshit, I think it might help go a long way. And I think that there's no better person to talk about that than you. So I posted your bio, and people know sort of what you're about. You're the guy who runs up the side of mountains in T-shirts and shorts. But give us your story real fast.
Now, would you say that it's because I'm the most normal person for that? Or
well, in my world, you're perfectly normal. Yes. In everyone who's watching this world, not so much.
Well, I think that routines are very important, and especially dealing with all the stress that's out there in the world. Like we are dealing with all of these esoteric things that are COVID and a dead economy and zombies chasing on the West Side Highway. And the thing is that releases all of these hormones in our body. There's adrenaline and the cortisol and the things that are supposed to give you boosts of energy. And when you're stuck inside, you can't use that energy for anything, right? I mean, you're in your apartment. All you get to do is grow your beard and have your hair, change your hair color. And what happens is if you're releasing chemicals that need energy and you can't release it, you get anxiety. That's the pathway there. So what you're doing, especially exercise, is so good because you're actually doing something which makes you gives you some sort of physical outlet. Now, it gets even better if your exercise can also have an emotional component to it. And I think right now there is one because you're feeling joy, right? You're like, I'm back to normal. Here's the emotion. And remembering that emotion is actually going to be really important to counteracting anxiety. Yeah.
It was interesting because it was a feeling of joy until about maybe 25 minutes into my run when I realized, because I almost forgot I was wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. Right. That being said, it was a great VO2 workout, but it was this point where, okay, now the mask is soaking wet. Now I'm feeling every breath feels like I'm being waterboarded. So that sort of brought me back to normal, but just enough to get that dopamine hit that put me in. I've been in a good mood all day.
Awesome.
Right. And that's nice because we don't, it's funny. You mentioned that the hormones and things that hit people tend to think, people tend to think, we get to sit at our couches all day and relax. But, I had someone this morning, I was talking to someone, I was doing an interview for someone, and they said, talk about, for a lot of people, this is kind of a reset. And I'm like, the fuck it is. This is not a reset. A reset is when you lie on a beach, shut off your phone, and you have no worries. This is the complete opposite of a reset. We're sitting here and sitting on your couch, even though you're working from home, worrying about everything, seeing a news alert and going, oh, for fuck's what now? Whatever is nerve-wracking. That's not a reset. It's nerve-wracking. It's almost more, I'm almost more tired by sitting here and working in my kitchen than I am, going to my office. Yesterday, I did a social distance with my mother and father and my daughter. And so we hung out and we went to the pier, the West Side Highway Pier. And it was the most anxiety-filled hour I've had in 3 weeks because I have to keep my daughter away from my mother. Worse, I had to keep my mother away from my daughter. I could not get my mother to stop wanting to go over to my daughter. I'm like, Mom, you're gonna die. Don't go over there. And then half the people walking around aren't wearing masks. So what are we doing? How do we get to a level of some level of peace or tranquility? Because this is not a reset.
Well, I think that the only constant in the world is change, right? I mean, that's the only thing that is going to be true our whole lives, is that things are altering around us. And I think the reset is probably the wrong word that he was using. But if we think back to like 8 weeks ago, what were we thinking about, right? What were we, we were caught up in the election. I mean, is there an election going on? I haven't heard from, probably not, right? So that's gone. We were worried about Instagram influencing, right? We were worried about all sorts of like stuff that was actually pretty negative, right? It was not always, always beneficial to us. And so COVID has knocked us into a whole nother place. It has forced us into a whole different a set of stresses. And I think that can be useful. In the neurological literature, we have homeostasis, that's where your baseline is, and we have allostasis, which is a baseline which has been altered, usually to a heightened state in a negative way. So anxiety is an allostatic place where you're in a anxiety all the time. You're feeling very pumped up, and you're trying to get back down to homeostasis, but allostasis keeps you in your new baseline. Well, what has actually happened is we've sort of taken a left turn, right? We were already in an allostatic place, but now we're in a different allostatic place. And some things have actually come down. In some ways, I'm not thinking about the bullshit that used to like take over my mind. I'm thinking about different bullshit. And I think in some ways I feel more adjusted, and in other ways I'm crazy. So, I mean, it's good. I mean, there's no real takeaway, right? It's just that life is happening.
I think the problem a lot of the time is that it's still like back when we were thinking about the election or thinking about Trump or whatever, that was stuff we couldn't control. This is still stuff we can't control. Right. So if we can't control it and that drives us crazy, the question becomes, what can we do? What can we focus on that we can control? And that's where your tips come into play. Yeah. That's where the stuff that you do comes into play. So talk about
Right.
that for a bit.
So, I wrote this book. It's called The Wedge. It's very pretty, right? And
Guys, I've read it. It's actually very, very good. I strongly recommend it.
And what this is really talking about is that, we are under this existential stress, right? All of these things, and even in the Trump, era, which was eight weeks ago, right? We are still living in existential stress because there's all this stuff that we can't affect. What we do have choice over is how we feel things, right? You can either let the chaos of the world make you feel worse, or you can try to, I was about to use the word resist, but that's not the right one. You can sort of redirect it or like let it miss you in a way. And we should be focusing on things that we can control. So when you're running outside, that is you expressing your, control over some part of your life, right? We have to look at the things that we can control, especially things that make us feel stuff, because sensations are very important. Because when you say you're stressed out, that's not an abject thing, right? That's something that you're feeling, that's visceral. And what I'm doing in the Wedge is I'm looking at like maybe 10 or 15 different things that you can do, whether it's breath work, whether it's cold showers, whether it's facing your fears, whether it's doing your exercise that you are doing, but adding a component like just doing it while breathing through your nose, which will make that so hard. It will make that you're going to be building up what's called CO2 tolerance, which is going to build up your athletic floor. That's all well and good. But what's really happening is you hate every moment of it because you feel so anxious. You feel like your performance is dwindling. And there we have a stress that you can play against. Right now, you're thinking about why you're breathing through your nose. You're thinking about why this sucks because it sucks. You're thinking about all of that stuff, but you're not chewing on COVID at that moment. Right. You're not chewing on the like you had your mother, your kids, right?
Is it the equivalent of banging your foot with a hammer to forget about your toothache?
I hope not. That sounds terrible.
But you know what I mean? The basic premise that you're thinking about something else. You're doing something else to think about or worry about to avoid the initial pain.
I mean, I guess to a degree, yes, but qualified, I think that's a really bad wedge.
So talk about the benefit that comes from that. So,
we're sensing the world all the time. Like even when we're not consciously sensing it, like I can see you through the light that's here, but I'm also feeling the air pressure. I'm also feeling my heartbeat. I'm also, I'm smelling things, but I'm not registering all of that. And yet all of those things are being wired into my brain all the time. So we're forming what's called neural symbols, which means a sensation that comes into your body doesn't make any sense to your brain at all. It's just a sensation. It's just data. It only starts to make sense when you wire it with an emotion, when you bond it with an emotional state. And if you start wiring anxiety into your life right now, if you feel anxious, you're also wiring that quality of light with anxiety, your quality, the sound, your heartbeat, all of that gets bonded with anxiety, so that in the future, that same quality of light, that smell could trigger the anxiety that you felt earlier, because we're always living in our emotional past. And essentially, there's this the trite way to talk about it is the power of positive thinking, right? This is the low end way, is that if you just think happy thoughts, you will be happier. And in a way, that's true, because you're creating an internal environment in your body of happiness. So you're predisposed to that. So things don't suck as much. And we can think of it that way.
All right, we got to go to a different topic, because we have it's like 50% of the questions are asking this. Nancy Feder asks, "Convince me that cold water is good, and for how long?" It always comes back to you and the cold, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
you can write about astrophysics and someone be talking about the cold. It always, you booked yourself into that corner, brother.
People don't even recognize me with my shirt on anymore. I'll tell you what. So convince you about the cold. Look, your life is stressful, right? Life is really hard right now. But if you want to, if you start the day doing something hard, and then you can control yourself while doing something hard. And honestly, the hardest thing a human can do is be in a warm shower and then turn around and turn that knob to cold. That is probably the hardest thing a human can do, because you're going from a luxuriously comfortable state into a state where you have to resist, you have to stand up. And it makes the day just a little easier, right? Just a fraction easier, because you've already done something that's hard, and you've already succeeded at doing something hard. So that's one thing that's useful. The other thing that's really good is it gives your body the things that aren't conscious, right? Not the anxiety, but it gives the things in your body that are unconscious. So that, like, you know, your gut microbiome, your immune system, these things that you don't have direct control over, it gives them something to do, because your body is essentially a lens to the outside world for all that stuff that's inside of you. So, you know, when I climbed at Mount Kilimanjaro in my bathing suit, yeah, I did that. I was on top of the mountain. I was releasing all sorts of hormones into my system, and they experienced Kilimanjaro through the lens of the hormones that I was releasing. They don't know Kilimanjaro, but they were there with me. So we're trying to give signals, and one stressful signal is a cold shower. There's many other signals we can do too. And
it's interesting because I find that I can't take a shower now without ending it for at least 2 minutes in ice cold. And I remember I was telling you, I told you when we first talked about a year ago, I said, oh, you know, I must be a wuss because, you know, I don't take a fully cold shower. I take a hot shower and then I switch to cold towards the end. And you go, no, that's actually harder. And I was shocked because that's what I do every single day. But that last minute or two in that cold is just such a wonderful wake up call. And I literally bound out of the shower, right? Yeah. Like I walk in, but I bound out, and it's really amazing. It really does tremendous benefits.
Yeah. I also think the breathing methods are very important too, because it's the same concept, but it's deeper. It's a longer practice. So the Wim Hof breathing is like hyperventilating and then exhaling and then holding your breath. And I do that every morning for about 15 minutes. And I will tell you, the days that I don't do it are worse, right? The days go on.
That's a classic ADHD line in that I know that if I don't exercise in the morning, I'm not going to have as good a day as if I did. Because I'm depriving my body of those chemicals that the exercise makes for me, the dopamine, the serotonin, the adrenaline. So yeah, it's the exact same thing. Tracy Gamble wants to know, she says she switches from warm to cold for the last couple of minutes of the shower because it's good for your hair and skin. Does she still get credit for being brave if it's for vanity?
Yes.
Yes, you do, Tracy.
You still get credit even if it's just vanity.
Christopher Ganny is a type of sensory training.
What is?
The cold showers.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Anything you sense is a type of sensory training, right? So, and what we really want to think about with sensory stuff is contrast, right? Wherever comfort is about stasis, right? It's about where you are, and what might be comfortable for me right now might not be what is comfortable for you, but it's the place where you are fine. Like, it's fine. You're not stressing yourself out. But the measure of what it means to be human, let's go really big here. The measure of what it means to be human is who you are under stress, not who you are when you're feeling comfortable, not when you're not challenged. So heat is one, fear is one. There's wedges for sex, there's wedges for sleep, there's wedges for psychedelic experiences, anything that pushes you out of homeostasis into temporarily over the edge and off the screen, boop. And then, but not to damaging levels. That's very important to do the sane, and then brings you back. That is what it's like exercising a muscle. It's what puts you into order.
But then that begs the question: when I started, I couldn't take a cold shower for more than 5 seconds. Now I can do up to like 5 minutes if I needed to, right?
Yeah.
So, but aren't we all chasing then just more of something? In the respect that, like, I have skydiving friends. I'm perfectly happy jumping out of a plane, flailing around the air, and landing. Yeah. I don't need to wingsuit. I don't need to swoop and any of that shit. I'm the world's most boring skydiver, and I'm fine with that, right? But a lot of people, they can. Well, that was awesome, but now I got to jump in a wingsuit. Now I got to base jump. Now I got to.
Yeah.
If we're pushing out of our comfort zones, don't we get accustomed to the comfort zone we're moving into, and then we have to find something even more?
Well, here's one question: are they just finding a new comfort zone? Right? Are they, when you're pushing these new extremes, are you finding that you're just comfortable at extremes? Maybe at that point, you need to actually do the opposite. Maybe you need to go to sensory deprivation. Maybe you need to go to meditation. Because, you're right. You can get addicted to things.
Yeah.
Things get addicting. And the point of life is not to be this super extrovert Instagram star, on brand all the time and, doing everything that's so adrenaline focused. The point is to have contrast. And if you're on the path of just doing more and more and more and more, you need to look at what your path actually is. And, I often get criticized for being too extreme because I do these really extreme things. but you don't know me because most of the time I'm hanging out in my house,
Right.
just chilling and just not doing that. So it is about the going from place A to place B and moving back and forth between these spaces.
My assistant gave me a gift certificate once to a sensory deprivation tank, and I did it for the hour, and I got out, and I swore to God I was going to fire her. It was the worst hour experience of my. I hated every single second of it. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I just cannot do it again. I could never do it again.
Have you gotten to the chapter about sensory deprivation in the book yet?
Yeah.
Where I got in a fight with my wife right like a minute before going into the sensory deprivation tank. Like sensory deprivations are awesome for me. They're like automatic meditation. But we got in this like marital spat when we were both going to go into the sensory deprivation tanks to just sort of see how we responded differently. And then we just like magnified the fight like a million times our head. And when we came out, we were like ready to just bite each other's necks off and like didn't happen. And then we realized that we were just making an echo chamber for where we already were. So these techniques are powerful, but you also have to use them wisely while you're at it.
Real quick, 1 minute left. Tell me something that people can do when they're stuck at home and they want to push their comfort zone, but they're under quarantine. They're in lockdown.
Exercise, get a kettlebell, swing the kettlebell just with your nose, right? Not with your nose, but while breathing through your nose. Another thing.
Okay, I was going to say, holy shit, this guy, that's really intense. I can't do that.
It's like a dolphin. Just swing it here.
While breathing just through your nose, swing the kettlebell. Okay.
Yeah. And then if you can go outside, try juggling a kettlebell. By which I mean you take a kettlebell and you throw it. I'm going to totally drop this like that. Do that outside. Don't break your floors. You're going to be scared of breaking your foot. And that's the point. You have to focus on the kettlebell and you have to be afraid a little bit. And then you have to be sane because you realize that in this practice, if you're not focused, you fail and it will force you to do that.
I'm going to be kicked out of my apartment if I tried that. Scott, how can people find you? Because I know a lot of people want to get the book and do it fast. I'm totally going to. It's true, on the outside I can't go to. I'll go to my basement. How can people find you? The Wedge is the book.
The Wedge, go to my website, scottcarney.com. There's a sample chapter there you can read. There's videos and all sorts of cool doohickeys things. There's social media. If you don't want to go to my website, there's also the internet. There's the Amazons, Audible. It's everywhere that your books are bought and sold. Except bookstores, they're all closed.
Public apology to Scott. My ADHD screwed up the time on this, and I was supposed to have you on yesterday. My apologies. I'm glad you made it today. I truly appreciate it. And we'll do this again. You are always a blast to talk to.
All right. Thanks, man.
Guys, stay safe, stay happy, stay home, stay healthy. Bye.